please feel free to ask any questions during this. I would love as much questions as I can. I've got some that I can answer as well, but try, love to any kind of feedback. So Drew Nicholas, I've been at Microsoft about 6.5 years. I've kind of been in three different areas of Microsoft. I've had several different jobs, but the jobs have gone from when I first started in 2015 as a cloud consultant. And what I was doing was helping, seems like there's feedback on one of them. Um, what I did when I started at Microsoft in 2015 was that, hey, Scott, would you mind muting? Awesome. Thank you so much. And so when I started in July of 2015, I came from the University of Alabama, where I did my undergraduate and graduate degree. But I got a very kind of interesting background prior to that. I actually, am definitely not advocating this at all, but I actually dropped out of high school, went and did construction for a little while and absolutely loved it. It's a wonderful industry, but I had the opportunity to go back to community college and took the opportunity to go to community college, and then from community college for a few years transferred to do my undergraduate at the University of Alabama, and then ended up doing graduate school as well. I actually kind of fell into IT. It's a little interesting. When I first started college, I was going to go for marketing. I wanted to be a sales. Really wanted to kind of market to people, and that's a great industry. But at the time, I was kind of there was a what we call it, a Great Recession was around 2008, 2009 time period is when I graduated college the first time, and the market was just really hard to kind of get a job. Took a few years where I just kind of did a few things, and I was like, I want to go back to graduate school and try to figure out what I want to do what I want to do when I grow up. So actually was there and did my MBA. I was actually going for investment banking, so I wanted to be a banker. And then after a couple of weeks at school, there was this opportunity to hear about different programs. And one of these programs was integration with what we call management information systems. And so I was listening to them, and what caught my ear was they're like, it's 100% job placement. And I was like, I really need a job. 100% job placement makes sense. And so I went down the path of like getting into IT. And that's just kind of for y'all's reference, like the tech industry is still booming right now. We are still looking for a ton of people. Right now alone in the cybersecurity industry, there's 900,000 unfilled jobs that are out there just in the United States, and 3 million globally. And that number is supposed to grow significantly over the next 10 years. So hearing that IT was looking for people, I was like, I'm going to do this because I really want a good job. Did it and got very lucky. Went through the interview process through Microsoft. I was provided an offer, and it was my dream company. When I started getting into IT and looking at different companies, it was my dream, and so I was very, very grateful just to get the opportunity. And so after I started at Microsoft in the 2015 time period, it was kind of helping customers move to the cloud. And these were very, very large customers. And if the cloud is this idea of how do I have, if you've ever, used a laptop and you get the error message that says like low on memory or something of that nature, that's because your computer is running those resources. But the idea of the cloud is taking those applications and kind of moving them to a much larger computer, and everyone connecting to that computer, regardless of where they are, and using that computer's memory and RAM and the other things that power the machines to connect. So it's for multiple reasons that a lot of companies are moving to the cloud. And you've probably heard the term on the commercials and such. But it's all this idea of what we call scalability. Scalability is a huge piece of the cloud. It's this idea of you should only you should have the resources that you need. So when times are very busy, so for example, for schools, they're very busy from like, the August to early December, and then from January to the May timeframe. But over the summers, it's fairly odd. It's like because you don't have a lot of people using the resources. And so the scaling, so you scale up when you need more resources, you scale down when you don't. There's other reasons, and actually there's three main other reasons, but around the 2015 timeframe, the cloud became very popular with enterprises. Companies started moving there. And what a lot of companies didn't do was, because it was very new, is that cybersecurity wasn't top of mind in the cloud at that point. So my job was helping them to move with what we call governance in mind. So how do you do those safeguards to protect your environment? Did that for about 2.5 years. Absolutely loved it. But in that time, I got a call from one of my manager and said, "Hey, we need you to go help a customer." Very large customer had a massive data breach. And so I was like, "Look, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I don't really know cybersecurity that well." And they're like, "Look, it happened in the cloud. We don't have anybody else that understands the security controls that are in the cloud. We just need you to go and do the opposite of what you've been doing. So instead of setting the controls, how would you kind of hack your way into this environment?" And so at that point, had one of the best times of my life. It's called incident response. And so this idea of incident response is how, as a company, do you address the kind of the aftermath of a security breach or a hack? And part of that was understanding like how what we call adversaries or the bad actors got into your environment, into your computer systems. What data did they steal, or what you may have heard terms like ransomware is very popular right now. How did ransomware get on the computers? And so after that the team called me. They're called DART, which is Microsoft's detection and response team. It's our customer facing incident response team. I was like, "Hey, want to get into cybersecurity?" And they offered me a position doing the same thing. Did it for about 2 years. So I was traveling the world, got to see some of the largest, unfortunately, like largest breaches in the world. These companies are, you may have heard things like recently on the news, like Colonial Pipeline, for example. I didn't work that case, but kind of the example is they were shut down with ransomware. One of the customers that I worked with in the Middle East, I was traveling everywhere, Middle East, a lot in South America and Asia. But one customer that I got hit to the Middle East, they're like about a $10 billion company. Well, every one of their computer systems was down. And so they couldn't sell their product. And if you're a $10 billion company, you're losing about $20 to $25 million every single day. And so my job was get there, figure out what happened, get them back up and running. Our team was able to do it in a matter of 7 days. I mean, it was 16-hour work days. It was very hard, but we got them back up and running. We got them producing their supplies. And so they were able to at least become functional. And that's the idea of incident response, is how do we take pretty much the worst scenario, figure out what happened, figure out all of the into it, and at least get you back up and running. Did that for about 2 years. Absolutely loved it. But this was pre-COVID. And I was traveling between that and my consulting before about 300 nights a year. So I'd done about 1,000 nights in those 5 years or so. So about 250 nights, or sorry, 200 to 300 nights, depending on the year, on the road. And it became a lot. Traveling is incredible. You get to see incredible places, but for work, it is harder. And so it's something I definitely recommend if you ever get an opportunity to get a job, to travel, to see the world. I had never been out of the country before and was able to see 14 different countries in that 2-year span. So it's definitely incredible opportunity, but it took a lot on me. And so I changed into my current role. It was right before COVID happened, and what I'm now is called an enterprise security executive. And so my job is to align with large enterprises on developing their cybersecurity plan. So from a cybersecurity standpoint, most large companies have about 80 different tools to protect. Some of those tools are to prevent phishing emails. You may have, in like your personal email or your school email, you may have received some emails and you're like, this is asking me to type my username and password in, or this is asking me to send money or something of that nature. That's kind of one of the tools that you plan. But the same thing is, you might have heard terms called like malware. So these are viruses on your computer. And how do we protect? The idea is like, how do we protect what we call defense in depth? So if, let's say, that phishing email with a bad attachment gets through the email gateway, we call it, how do we make sure it doesn't run on your computer? Or the next part is, how do we make sure that people aren't stealing your identity and trying to use it to different places? So my current role is working with these companies and helping them develop these cybersecurity plans, both from the tool set standpoint, but also from this idea of like an incident response standpoint. So if you get breached, and unfortunately the term in cybersecurity nowadays isn't if you get breached, it's pretty much when you get breached. Every 2 years, about 30% of companies experience a breach. So it's just very, very common nowadays. And it's, how do we accept the fact that a breach is going to happen? What we call is we have a term at Microsoft called assume breach. So if you assume that you're going to be breached or hacked, how do you reduce the potential damage? So if I get breached here, how do I stop it from shutting all of my computer systems down? Or how do I stop it from stealing in personal information? So like if you ever have typed like a credit card in, or if you've ever typed in information, like if you go to the doctor's office, like there's personal information that we want to always make sure that if those actors or adversaries get into your environment. So that's kind of my role today, is really helping stop companies from getting into the cloud. I think one of the big things about this series or whatnot is kind of understanding like mindsets and how to get to places, or like how I got into my job. I was interviewed not too long ago, and they were like, what's the 3 criteria that you look for to do your job sufficiently? One of the things that I kind of said is, here you go, I'll just bring this up. This was my interview not too long. I called it, I reverse engineered my way into cybersecurity, because I was saying that I didn't come into computers with the idea of cybersecurity. I came into it with the idea of doing computers. And then it just so happened I moved into it. But what does it take to be good at your job? Really, it's these 3 pieces. It's curiosity. And this goes true for any IT job, regardless of whether you want to be like a coder or if you want to be cybersecurity. There's a curiosity standpoint. If you've ever had the feelings like why is something doing that? You're like, like why wouldn't you do this, or why wouldn't you do that? There was times as a kid I would always ask my parents, like when I was younger, like that doesn't make sense. It does, like if you did this instead of that, what would happen? And it was always a curiosity thing for me as a kid. I was never very good. I'm just kind of being candid here. I was never very good at reading. I love like I was good at math, but I'm not very good at reading. And that was one of the reasons that I kind of dropped out of high school, is because I wasn't very good there. I would never like recommend anyone dropping out of high school. But I was saying that earlier to say that there's always a path. You can always kind of mess up and still get on the right path. But for me, my brain just worked a little differently. And so when I got to college, I was able to take more classes that were meant for the way that I think. And so I took more math classes, and instead of doing like a foreign language, they allowed us to do like computer science classes. And for me, things with like coding just kind of made sense. And so, in that curiosity that I talk about, it's really trying to figure things out. And so in the cybersecurity or in the IT world, things change. Like you'll be using new computer systems every few years. Some of y'all may have gotten a computer recently, or like you may be getting one in the near future. It's called Windows 11. We just came out with it. Things change. Every couple of years, you're going to have new computer systems. You're going to have new machines, and you just got to figure this stuff out. Like, how does it work? Being humble is probably I would say humility is one of the biggest things you'll do in your career, wherever you land. Humility is just recognizing that you're very lucky, regardless of where you are. I look back and, sometimes I regret the decision to drop out of high school, but it's humbles me in the fact that I could still there. I'm very fortunate that I got a mother that loves me, but does like growing up, it wasn't always the best financial situations, but I'm very humble in the fact that you can come from anywhere and still get wherever you want. And people love humility. Empathy as a cybersecurity person is probably, especially in an incident response world, is the biggest thing. You're walking into these companies that, like I mentioned, is losing $20 million a day. The CISO, which is the highest ranked security person at most companies, will probably be fired because of this. When you talk about losing a company, $160 million, that's a lot. Not just the CISO, but a lot of security people are going to be there. Maybe the highest person of the company will be fired. And so it's a very tense scenario, but you've got to be empathetic to understand that this is the worst thing from their career standpoint that has probably ever happened to them. And so just, being there for them. There's a lot of times I talk about in this article about, I see a lot of customers at the time going through kind of the 5 stages of grief. Anger is definitely one. When something traumatic happens, they're very angry. So I'd walk into a lot of these situations, and the first day was just me getting yelled at. And it was okay. I mean, I had to listen, respect their opinion, and kind of get them to the next stage of the 5 stages. And it was really incredible once we got them back up and running, and they would kind of realize you go through the 5 stages, the last one being acceptance. It was really neat to see all 5 stages of these and these traumatic experiences for customers. But I don't know if that's kind of what we're looking for. Like, if there are any questions, I know I talked a lot. I'm sorry, I think there might have been a question, but
What is it? What education level? Because what education level do you have to have for the position you're in?
That's interesting. As there's some people who never went to college that I'm peers with. There's some like myself who has graduate degree. A lot of the tech companies are moving towards removing the requirement of college. And I say that in the fact that college doesn't have to be a requirement, it makes things easier. I'm not like that. That's the easiest way to say it is like college and like even graduate school. The more education you have, I found, this is just my personal opinion, that it makes things easier. But I say on the flip side, there's not a hard requirement for that. I know that we've hired at Microsoft, we've hired people straight out of high school before. There's a lot of the big tech companies that are hiring, and there's a lot of one of the things I wanted to show you all today was we actually even have like Microsoft high school internship programs. And we also have this what we call technology education and literacy. And like this is for like high school computer science programs. But we actually have like actual, I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm not on the side of it, but I believe that we actually paused. Oh yeah, it's right here. High school internship for 2021 just because of COVID. But prior to COVID, um, we actually had interns, and from what I understand, they got like pulled directly from there. But from a technology standpoint, it's really good if you can kind of like learn. There's certifications that are out there. There's like free trainings. This is a neat one. I'm not sure if y'all do Minecraft or whatnot, but like actually building. This is like teaches you how to be a developer. There's actually virtual workshops and training for students and families. So this is how we talk about STEM, which is for those that might not be familiar, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But this is what we call our STEM day and our coding day, where you can go on here and take free workshops on how to learn to code or how to be like kind of a STEM side. So to answer your question, it is very much, it depends. Absolutely, like the college makes things easier holistically, but I don't know if that helps answer it.
Come on, we break talk.
What's the strangest thing you've had to do while working at Microsoft?
What's the what?
He said, "What's the strangest thing you've had to do while working there?"
Strangest. I this isn't necessarily working there. It's but I was working there, and that's why I was there. I traveled to a lot of places that the food is quite different, and you kind of eat, and it, please note, it's delicious. And I've loved the opportunity to get, but I've like been places where I've eaten camel, eaten other, most of the time when I went to places that like eat things that are different than what we would consider like normal here in the United States, it was kind of one of those things. I was like, please just don't tell me what it is. I'll eat it, and then you can kind of tell me. So it'd probably be learning different cultures' foods, but they're great. It's just it's different. From a work strange part, it's more of a kind of think of how like I would define strange in that sense. Maybe not strange, but one of the hardest things that I would say, but is also probably my favorite, is the rate of change and the rate of learning. Every day in technology, things are so much different than they were the day before. I was interviewing some students interviewing some people for our college hire program not too long ago, and they were asking me about like, hey, what do I need to know to like get hired? I'm like, well, to be fair, it's not necessarily what you know today is what's going to get you hired in any kind of tech company. It's what you possess with the ability to learn. But with that, a lot of it is very difficult because like we have to learn things where it's never been done before. And so not necessarily strange, but definitely hard and weird is there's not like guides to do a lot of the stuff that I have because it's never been done before. And so it's just like clicking buttons and figuring out what you're doing by just literally clicking buttons. So.
this is actually our business communications class. Of course, we are just now transitioning here at Cosby High School to compute. We are actually doing computer science and coding, and this is the first year. This is the first semester. So I feel what you're talking about there, clicking buttons, because I feel like my head's swimming half days more than the other. My thing would be your advice. I know you touched on a little bit with your bio, but you've got a 17-year-old kid right now that is really, I actually saw when you're talking, there were some eyes lit up in here, especially, hearing there's 900,000 jobs. What pathway? If you could go back to 17-year-old you right now, what do you recommend?
So one thing that I would recommend quick is like learning. There's a lot of these like that I was showing, like this coding workshops, or we have a lot of like certifications, and these are meant, like one of them, for example, is, and I can get y'all some of the information on like how you would take these, because you're supposed to get like a free opportunity to take these, but these are like computer fundamental like exams. They're meant to like help people learn how to get into technology. And so like, for example, this is our cloud fundamental exam. It's you can see it's ACE College. I believe it's for high school as well. And I can follow up on that, but like we give these vouchers out because we're intending for these to be for people who are trying to like learn what is cloud computing or what is these services. And so for me, my recommendation would be there's a lot of like free things that you have access to with your high school email address. I would definitely utilize as much of these free workshops or free certifications or free learning paths there. I don't know if that helps.
Oh, it does. It does. Anybody? That's all around. You could go back. All right, what's some of the benefits of working at Microsoft?
Definitely a lot. It's I mean, it's definitely cool. Like when you talk to like friends and colleagues, I always joke that Microsoft is a startup. I'm like, yeah, we're a startup. We've just been a startup for 40 years. I mean, it's definitely it's cool to be able to say, like, I mean, if y'all are NFL fans, like we have the Surface on the Sideline program. I have one of my good friends. She was actually the consultant for Surface on the Sideline. So for the first couple of years, she was on the NFL sideline every single week for 2 years, helping the coaches make sure that they didn't break their surfaces, which are like our iPads. There's a couple of coaches who get angry and throw them. So she would have to be there to make sure, like if they broke, that the next one was up and going. But from a benefit standpoint, I mean, work-life balance is something that we really strive for. And what I mean by that is that you're given a lot of freedom on number of hours you work, what you do on your time. Like our senior leadership is very big on making sure people are happy in their job. And a lot of times that happiness necessarily doesn't, you have to be happy with what you're doing as a job, like because you're doing it for at least 40 hours of your life. You're doing it for probably 30 years at 40 hours a week. Like you have to enjoy what you're doing because it's just going to make life hard if you're not. But at the same time, you also have to be able to enjoy your personal life, whether it's with a family, whether it's kids. Right now, I have a girlfriend who hopefully will be a fiance soon if she says yes. But so I have to do that. But I also I love sports. I mentioned I'm an Alabama grad. I live here in Nashville. I go to the Titans game. I have a lot of freedom on my personal time. But so it's work-life balance is a big part of it. The other thing is they're very big on philanthropy. And so I get up to like, I can donate up to like, it's up to $18,000 for every dollar I donate, they donate. And also they donate whenever, like this is a volunteer opportunity for me. Like they actually give money to the charities or to the organizations that I volunteer my time. And so there's a very big focus on us volunteering and giving back to the community and helping grow. So for me, the benefits are definitely, there's a lot, but hopefully those covered some of them.
Yeah. One thing I know that we kind of thought, what about the relocation process? I mean, is there, as someone here, we're rural East Tennessee, where, how far you have to go? Do you get to kind of select where you're going to be? How does that work?
So the cool thing about tech, and I'm very interested to see, so if y'all are 17, like seniors, some of y'all may be going to tech jobs in the very near future. Some may, let's say 5-6 years down the road. So Microsoft has been very big on remote work for years. But a lot of the industry as a whole, especially in IT, is moving to this remote model, and it goes back to the cloud and some other things. But for us, how it worked was because I was part of the college hire program. I had to move my first year with Microsoft to Dallas, Texas. After a year, they paid my relocation. I paid my rent for the 12 months. After the year was up, I talked to my manager. He's like, you can literally live wherever you want. And I've always kind of enjoyed traveling and such of that nature. And so since just working at Microsoft, I've lived in Atlanta, Dallas, Los Angeles, Nashville. This is my second or third time living here. And so I've been given the freedom that I can just live wherever I want. And that's one of the cool things about the remote work is you can be, if you want to, get hired at Microsoft, let's say you do the year, if you want to move back and be like in East Tennessee, you can do your work from there just like you can from any of these large cities. The only reason that they ask that you live 1 year in one of our big offices, and we have 5 big offices, Dallas is being one, is just to be able to meet other coworkers, because we do like the fact that you want to be friends with your colleagues and such of that nature. But for the most part, you can live wherever you want.
Be about 5 minutes late to second block for you. If you have any questions, if they have high first block, just give us a call. Thank you.
Hopefully y'all aren't late to your next block.
No, we're good.
What's one of y'all's biggest flaws in Microsoft?
Flaws. For a long time, this is something that we're changing the last couple of years. We had a new CEO in 2014, Satya Nadella, and he has been very focused on bringing Microsoft outside of just Microsoft. And what I mean by that is, if you look back on our history, we were very focused only on Microsoft. And whether we had, at one point we had a Microsoft lot, we actually bought Nokia at one point, and we were saying the only way that you're going to be able to run pretty much Microsoft apps is on the Microsoft phone. And so it was very much like Windows only focus, and Windows is our operating system, but there's other operating systems out there, whether it's Mac's a different operating system, Linux is a different one. And we tried to, I would say we kind of looked away from working with those other, what we call open source tools. And this was actually a changing moment when Satya Nadella came on stage, and this was actually, he was on stage. This is our CEO right here, and he's just an incredible individual, one of the caringest people. But he put Microsoft loves Linux, and that was game changing in the industry because Linux was our competitor in Windows. And from an enterprise standpoint, But what Satya came in is like, I don't care what platform you're using. I don't care what you're doing. I want you, whatever tool for Microsoft. And what that really meant was being customer obsessed. And that's what he, like, that's his big thing is we've got to love customers more.
Any other questions?
Do you guys still do like high school internships, or did you stop doing them after the corona hit?
Well, it looks like it's everything I've read, it's paused for 2021. But it looks like, I mean, it will be based on everything I know, it should be coming back. I can definitely work with the NTC education team and get the documents over to y'all once I get like hard and fast and ensuring that it's coming back and when.
Any others? I think we're questioned out.
I have a quick question for you, Drew, if that's all
Sure.
right. In your opinion, what tech skill or tech skills, which tech skills are in the greatest demand currently, and do you think will be in demand in the future?
So I'm going to say cybersecurity. I mean, it helps that I'm a cybersecurity person, but also I was doing, okay, 2 seconds. Pause this. Resume. This was actually from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I pulled this up not too long. So these are the fastest growing occupations, what they're projecting in the next 10 years. And if you look here, information security analyst is supposed to grow 33% in the next 10 years. So we are already short in the United States alone, 900,000 jobs that are unfilled. And that number is supposed to grow by 33% in the next 10 years.
Wow,
And-
that's incredible.
And so that's why one of the things that they're looking, and this is kind of an industry thing as a whole from a cybersecurity standpoint, it really is how do we recruit non-cybersecurity talent into the workforce? And that can even be, I know a lot of friends of mine are these like information security analyst jobs. They're looking at hiring folks that's never even been in IT because we've got to get more people into IT and we have to fill these roles. And if it's considered like and this is where we start talking about like entry level jobs, not requiring high school diploma, or sorry, not requiring like college degrees, is like if it's an entry level position, I'm trying to teach you how to do this. And so that's where a lot of these firms are really looking at, like, how do we get more people into cybersecurity?
Excellent. Well, Drew, thank you again so much for being here. Justin, students, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and want to be aware of it because I think you're about to change classes, but that's all we have here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is very helpful, very helpful.
Great, great. Well, you all have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank y'all so much for your time.
Bye.